Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Chapter 7 of the Agency and Freelancer Academy webinar series. Is it, we're going to wait a couple more minutes and wait for a few more people to join. But if you can hear me, it would be great if you could let me know that you can hear me okay. Just do a bit of a mic check. So if you can hear me, if you're here, please come and say hello in the chat section. And we will wait a few more minutes before we get started. Okay, great. Hey, Becky, welcome. Melanie, thank you for joining us. So I'm just going to hang around for a little bit longer, a couple more minutes, because I can see that there's a lot less people that have joined the webinar today than usual. So I'm just going to see if we can work out why that is, if there are any problems. Did any of you have any problems getting onto the webinar page or into the software or anything like that? Okay, cool. That's good to hear. Okay, so we'll give it another minute or two, and if nobody else joins, then we'll just we'll fire ahead anyway, like usual. And maybe there's been a problem with some of the emails or something like that. I'm not too sure, but well, there has also been a time change slightly. The time for me is different to what it was last week because of the time change here in Europe. But I know often a lot of you guys are tuning in from the US. So let's just hang around for a couple more minutes and see if anybody else comes in, and then if not, we will get started at my time is telling me it's 5 minutes past the hour, so let's say we'll get started at 7 minutes past the hour. So if you're here and you're ready to go, maybe just go grab a drink, and we will get started very shortly. Okay, everybody, 7 minutes past, so let's dive into things. Thank you for the few of you that have joined us. I appreciate it. I hope you're looking forward to this one. So today, chapter 7, we're going to be talking about when and how to grow your team. And before we get into that, how many of you, I know the audience is fairly small today, so you're going to have to be active and engaged with me. I hope you don't mind. How many of you have been on one of these webinars before, or how many of you is this your first time on a Promo Republic webinar? And also let me know if you're a current Promo Republic customer, or if it's something that's kind of new to you, whether you're in your trial. It's not going to be a massive sales pitch, this webinar at all. It's more value driven, but it's just good for me to get an understanding of who we've got on today and who we're speaking to. Because as I say, usually we have a lot more people on, so I'm going to have to do some research and find out what has happened here. But I'm really pleased that we have some of you with me today, so that's great. So let's get straight into things. Today we are going to be covering kind of 3 different areas. This will be a fairly interactive webinar today, like usual, and we'll be covering like when is it time to grow? When is it time to grow your business? Should you outsource or should you bring someone in-house? And how you can find talented employees or contractors / freelancers. And for anyone who is new here, I know it looks like most of you have been on these webinars before, but I can see Tanner, this is your first one, so welcome. If you don't know about me, my name is Dylan Hay. I am also myself a digital marketing agency owner, but I'm helping Promo Republic with this agency and freelancer academy that we've put together. So basically we are doing absolutely everything we can and everything within our power to put together as much useful, engaging, educational-based content for the agency and freelancer space. And I'm one of the people that's helping lead that along with the team who are incredible at Promo Republic. So I'm an agency owner myself, as I said. I've been running my own digital marketing agency since May of 2018. Before that, I worked for a number of pretty cool companies, those like Hootsuite and Leadfeeder. I host a top 15 iTunes podcast that's called the Social Media Growth Show, and you can see here my work's been featured in a number of other interesting places too. So that's a little bit about me. Hi, Rahul, I can see you in the chat section. Yeah, cool. Everyone, please feel free to engage as we go as well. I'm here to help you all rather than like sell a product to you or anything like that. I'm here to share my experience with you, the experience of others around us, and here to help you all grow. So I'd love to know, Tanner, I know that you're new here, so maybe if you could tell me a little bit about your business or your agency or what it is that you do, that would be really cool too. So straight into things, I think we'll keep this webinar today fairly not brief because there's a lot of action-packed stuff in here, but we'll keep to the schedule and we'll try and rattle through this because there's a lot of useful information here and I know there aren't a ton of you on here, so I do appreciate your time and I'll make sure we have plenty of time for questions and answers throughout and at the end as well. So when is it time to grow? First of all, before we start to tackle that question, I have a couple of questions for you watching this. So what is the size of your current team? If anyone wants to share, are you a solo operator? Do you have a team around you? Do you have a team in-house? Like, do you have an office? Do you have a team of freelancers, contractors around the world? Tell me a little bit more about the size of your current team, and if you could, maybe some of the biggest struggles that you have faced so far with scaling or growing your business. That would actually be really interesting to see from some of you. But again, as I said, I know there's not a ton of you here on this live. I know there'll be a lot of you watching this on the replay also. So I'll try not to spend too much time on questions like this. But for me, myself, maybe some of the biggest struggles that I've faced with scaling, as I said, I've only been running my agency at the time of this webinar for about 6 or 7 months. And maybe just one of the biggest issues with scaling for me is that when I have tried, I haven't necessarily had all of the systems in place to be able to handle that scaling. Like when I took on my first kind of full-time contractor or full-time employee, it just didn't work out. Like I wasn't ready to do that. I tried to scale too quickly. So that is one of the biggest issues that I face, just not being ready and not having the systems in place or not being organized enough to scale. And we're going to cover some of this thing a little bit later on as well within this webinar. It's great to see. So Melanie says team of 2 using outsourcing to assist. Rahul says 4 people, most work from home. Tanner says one of the issues has been it's been very difficult to find reliable contractors and screen them properly. Yeah, I understand. That's something that I can help with, Tanner. So you said you tried using Upwork, had a bad experience. We'll talk about Upwork and other freelancing platforms a little bit later on in this webinar. I do actually have a YouTube video on my personal YouTube channel. If you just want to search Dylan Hay on YouTube, you'll see me, and I put together like a 10-15 minute video about how I source good quality contractors on Upwork. I think you'll find that one really useful because I know a lot of people have had bad experience with Upwork, but there's also a lot of incredible talent on there, and it's for me the platform. But as I said, we'll get to that later on. So first, when you're thinking about when is it time to grow or when is it time to scale, you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. And the first one is, do you have a repeatable customer acquisition process in place right now? So right now you probably have, if you're thinking about scaling, that means that you have enough work to keep you busy. But to continually grow your agency or your business, you need to be able to continually generate more leads or more business. And you don't want to spend money on like a new office or some incredible employees only to break even or even worse, plummet towards the red. You want to make sure when you are about to scale, you have enough clients coming in to be able to recoup the cost of that scaling initially. So think about, how have you attracted your clients so far? What have been your most successful customer acquisition channels? And what other acquisition channels can you use to bring in more business? So I just want you to think that before you start to scale or grow your agency or your business, you have to make sure you have replicable protocols in place for bringing in more customers. And I think that's maybe one of the issues that, well, not one of the issues that I face, but I said to you when I hired my first employee, I maybe wasn't organized enough behind the scenes or ready to go through that, and that's been a big learning curve for me. And what happened was, I had a great social media manager that I was working with. This is a good example, actually. I had a great social media manager. He was awesome, couldn't do anything wrong, and I had him working on one social media management client of ours, and then out of nowhere, really to our surprise, we lost client, not for reasons for our work or anything like that, from some issues on the client side. We lost that client, unfortunately. They'll be coming back at some point, but we lost them for the time being, and I didn't have an immediate piece of work for that media manager. So that was like a big learning point for me, and that's because I didn't have this repeatable customer acquisition process in place. So this is something that is really, really important. Really important to ask yourself when we're thinking about when is it time to grow or when is it time to scale. One of the first things you have to think about is this. And then the next one, this is also equally important. And this is something that a lot of us maybe worry about or sometimes forget about too. If you were to go on vacation, if you were to have to take 10 days off, maybe it wasn't a vacation, maybe you fall ill or you have to attend to some family matters or something like that, and let's say you can't access your computer for 10 days, what will happen to your business? As an agency owner, the best thing you can do to help your business grow is try and phase yourself out of the day-to-day workflows. You can't be this micromanager who needs to be super hands-on and touch every single project before it's finalized. Or you can, but if you want to take that route, you'll struggle to scale. You'll always have to be in the business. So you need to think about being able to work less in your business and more on your business. So rather than being in the business, hands-on in all the day-to-day small tasks or administrative things or day-to-day bits and pieces, you have to think about the activities that you can actually do to work on your business. So to bring more clients in or that kind of stuff. So if you were to go on vacation right now, what would happen to your business? I can see that Tanner says that's a big issue, is taking vacation. Okay, you do a lot of technical work, so it's hard to train contractors. Yeah, I understand. And it's something you've got to think about, right? Because there has to be a way that you can train some contractors or some employees, because otherwise, like, what's your long-term plan? Like, what do you do further on in life? I mean, I don't know where you're at in your business in terms of the size or how long you've been doing it for, where you're at in your life. I don't want to make any assumptions, but like, what's the long-term plan? Because if you can't take a vacation, you can't take any time off, what are you going to do when you want to like sit back and retire or spend less time in the business and have it operating for you? So that's something really important to think about. I can actually see some of the other comments earlier on as well. So Kimberly said that she was an Upworker before it was Upwork, right? It was called Elance, I think, if I'm right in saying, Kimberly, Elance, right? Yeah, so this is something really important to think about. And then the one other question that I wanted to put in here is, what shape is your business in financially? And that is something that's, of course, it's pretty obvious that you have to think about that before scaling, but you have to really think about it properly, and that's why I wanted to put it in here. So you need to be asking yourself questions like, what's your net profit? What are your expenses? Have you calculated your gross profit margin? You have to be able to see absolutely everything to the penny, because if you aren't in that position, then you're not going to be able to scale effectively if you don't know your costs inside out. If you don't know these, you're just not ready to grow. Without these numbers, you can't be confident of how much money you're bringing in or whether it's going to be enough to support your next phase of expansion. And for me personally, this is an issue that I face and I'm working on improving right now, is that I had a very loose understanding of my numbers. Like I knew that money was coming in, I knew that I was doing okay, doing well, but I didn't have everything tracked to the penny, and I still don't, but it's something that I'm working on currently. And this is really important because you can't scale if you don't know all of these things inside out. I can see a few other comments coming in, which is cool. So yeah, it's just really important to think about this before deciding whether or not to scale. So now we're going to talk about outsourcing or in-house. Now, before we get into that, what did you think of the first kind of section of this, whether or not it's the right time to scale? Was that useful? Was that useful for you? I can see we've got a few more people that have joined the webinar since we first started, which is awesome to see. So welcome to everyone who has joined in the last few minutes or after the introduction. I appreciate you all. I hope you're going to find the rest of this webinar helpful too. I can see that we have a lot of people talking about like Upwork, freelancers, contractors. So that's why we're going to go into this section about outsourcing or in-house, because I think this is going to be like, this is something that I think about a lot, and I know will be beneficial to a lot of you too. Now, I have my own opinions on this, on the outsourcing or in-house thing, and I'm very pro one of these, and we'll cover that. But I want to talk about both sides of the coin. So before we do that, I just wanted to share this statistic with you. So I was looking on the Upwork website a couple of days ago, and I was building out a webinar deck, trying to find some cool and interesting stats for you, and some just interesting things to share with you. And this is one that I found. So in the olden days, but it's probably the wrong term to use, but a while ago, agencies used to kind of hide the fact that they use freelancers behind the curtain, and they had the freelancers like quietly pumping out the work, but they hid that. Whereas now, it's becoming clear that you have to, like, success really requires you to view your freelancers or contractors as strategic assets to your business. And often people are scared to reveal to their clients that they use freelancers or contractors, or sometimes don't want to admit that they use freelancers or contractors. But I just want to say, like, you really shouldn't worry about that. So using freelancers is now so common that 80% of respondents in this survey revealed that their agency uses them. So if you use a freelancer, you use a contractor, you are not alone, and it's not a problem. It's not a big deal. I actually think it's a very, very positive thing, and we're going to talk about that now. So how many of you guys utilize, guys and girls, how many of you use freelancers within your business, contractors from Upwork or other platforms? I'm sure there's going to be a ton of. So like for me, I'm going to be very real with you all, very honest with you. I'm 6, 7 months into my agency owner journey. So I've never brought anybody in-house. Like, I don't have a full-time office with loads of people in it. So I'm based in Tallinn in Estonia. I have an office for myself, but I don't have full-time employees in my office. Instead, I went down the route of utilizing contractors or freelancers, and we'll talk about how to find those talented freelancers a little bit later on. But I just want to explain to you kind of why I did that, and then some things that I think you guys should consider when you're thinking about that outsource versus in-house kind of question. So for me, these are some of the things that you really, really have to think about. What kind of business do you want to run? Like for me, the reason that I've gone down the kind of outsource or the contractor route is because I travel frequently. I don't want to be like, or I didn't want to be completely fixed to one location, and that was one of the very first reasons. The second reason was that for me, you can find very, very talented people, contractors, that can do specific jobs extremely well, and they can be in different parts of the world where the cost is actually a lot lower for me. Like, I don't have to pay their benefits, I don't have to pay all of this other stuff, and I can actually often find better talent easier and faster in other parts of the world than I could if I was to hire somebody in-house. Tanner, I will share my secrets on screening a bit later on, and I mentioned that YouTube video that you should check out too. But yeah, so the first question is you have to think about what kind of business it is that you want to run. Then overheads. I kind of briefly touched on that. Availability and access to talent. Like for me, being here in Tallinn in Estonia, it's a very, very small city. The country itself of Estonia has something like 1.3 million people in the whole country. And in Tallinn, I think there's 350,000 people. So there's some very, very talented people here within the tech world, which is where I focus my attention. But there's not a huge pool to choose from. And I imagine that depending on where you are based as well, sometimes it's actually just easier to find that talent online rather than in the towns or the cities that you live in. And then the last thing to consider is the time that it takes. Like I haven't had to kind of train and ramp up some staff of my own, but like uh, the time it would take to train and ramp up someone if you do manage to find them within the local area versus just being able to outsource everything to an expert is going to save you guys tons of time, and time is the only asset that you can't buy more of. So that's something that's very, very important. So these are like 3 or 4 of the main things that I think you should consider when you're thinking about outsourcing or doing things in-house, and these are the key considerations that come to mind for me personally as well. I can see we've got some action going on in the chat, so let's just pause for a second whilst I read through this. What's your opinion on this kind of outsource versus in-house? Everybody, it'd be great to hear from you. Okay, it's cool to see Tanner and Kimberly and Melanie all kind of helping each other out in the chat, which is great. That's like one of the main reasons we put together this agency and Freelancer Academy, is to build this community and utilize all of our knowledge and be able to knowledge share. So it's really good to see you all engaging like that. Yeah, as Elaine says, it's definitely more cost effective for your business to hire great contractors. It just takes time. Sometimes it can take time to find them, but when I say that, I used to be a recruiter, right? Like years ago, I worked in recruitment, and actually it's a lot easier to find a contractor than it is to find somebody in-house, in my opinion. Cool. So let's move on to kind of the final section of the webinar. We've really shot through this one very quickly today, so I'll make sure we spend plenty of time on Q&A about hiring and finding talent, etc. We have five or six more slides, and then we'll be wrapping up for questions and stuff. So I think we'll probably be about another 10 minutes, and then we'll be stopping for questions and some other things that I want to show you all. So this section, how to find talented employees or contractors. Now we're going to talk about employees first. As I said, full disclosure, I haven't hired full-time employees in-house for my business just yet. I'm not at that stage, but I worked in recruitment for a very long time. I've helped hire at other businesses too. So this is some tips from me. And the first thing that I want to say is, like, long before company experiences enough growth to be able to hire, like before you even get to the point where you're deciding that you need to hire someone, you should already be starting to attract talent, because recruiting like an incredible rock star or the perfect person for you can take a very long time. It can even take a couple of years. So there's lots of different things you can do to start kind of creating the buzz around your business and your brand and connecting with potential hires if you're looking to bring somebody in-house. So you could do things like maybe creating email opt-ins for visitors to your website who are interested in working for you, and then adding them to like a quarterly news updates or things going on within the business. Or you could send them little updates and make sure you nurture that relationship long before you bring them in for an interview. And this is why like branding for your agency and for your personal brand is so important too, so that people feel more attached to you and feel like they can understand you a lot better and a lot easier. You should always be thinking about this kind of stuff within your own business's content plan and social media strategy too. So you want to be talking about like the benefits of working for your business, thinking about all the different things that you can kind of show off and share with people to, most importantly, make these people want to work for you. And this is a process that can take a long time, and it comes with building your brand as a business and an agency. So that's something really important to think about. But then the key sources for me, based on my experience in the past, referrals. Like if you've hired someone and they've done a great job, so they know, who do your friends and family know, like always ask as many people as you can, because a referral is always worth so much more. Treat recruiting like an inbound marketing campaign. So I've kind of just been through all of that just then, but there's also like tools that you can utilize to help you. So if you do decide to do a job posting, utilize something like ZipRecruiter. So ZipRecruiter is a tool that I believe it will send your job listing to over like 100 different job boards just by entering it on ZipRecruiter and like the press of one button. So that's a good way to kind of distribute the job listings in multiple places rather than just rely on one or two and spend loads of time doing it. And then the other thing is just direct messaging utilizing LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn can be super powerful to find great people. You can like you need to be nurturing those relationships too, though, right? So like we talked about earlier, like of course if you want someone right now and immediately, you can just go straight in and tell them that you're hiring and that you think they could potentially be a good fit and you want to talk to them, etc. But where it becomes most powerful is actually just building out your network and your brand and connecting with these people and building a relationship with them so that when the time comes, it is then easier to speak with them. And I can see that Tanner has just said in the chat, if anyone is looking for an alternative to ZipRecruiter, AppSumo just released Go Hire. Okay, so that's cool. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Tanner. That's a really useful piece of information. I'm just going to read through some of the other chats because I can see there's some longer ones in here. So I just want to see if I can help any of this. Okay, it just looks about kind of bad experiences with contractors. So we can talk about that later on. So that's those are a few ways that you can find talented employees. Now, how about contractors? So we've talked about Upwork a ton, so we won't go into loads and loads of depth of that right now. But there's Upwork as a platform. There's other freelancing platforms too. The ones that I know of, like People Per Hour. There might be freelancer.com still. I'm not sure the number of like Filipino job boards also. But like it sounds like the people on this webinar so far already have a good grasp of Upwork and freelancer platforms, so that's cool. So then a couple of other ideas that I have for you is Facebook groups. Like Facebook groups are actually a really good way to find good talent because it's also easy to, well, not easy, but sometimes easier to vet them because you'll see recommendations or you see what they're actually like as people. Like if you say you're looking for a web developer or a designer or something like that, if you go and check a number of these groups, whether they're social media groups, whether they're design focused groups, and just go to the search bar within the group and search for what you need, it can often be a really good way to find people. I know that my girlfriend runs a design agency and she found her web developer in a Facebook group months and months and months ago. And they've been working together for a very long time and he's really good quality. So Facebook groups can also be a great place to source candidates and contractors. And then the other one is your current audience. People forget about this one a lot. If you have like built any kind of personal brand, like I have, for example, if I need to hire someone or I need some help, I just put something on my Instagram story or in my Facebook group or talk about it on my podcast. And I often get a lot of people coming to me. Now, I know that not all of you are going to build out your personal brands, but you'll definitely have like some kind of following, whether that's friends and family on Facebook or on other platforms, people following your agency business, previous clients, like just ask. Like often we forget to ask our own network, and there'll be a lot of people that maybe you didn't think were looking for work or didn't think were available, but then when you ask the question, actually a lot of time they are. So that's something else really important to consider. Now, that's kind of the end of that segment. I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about briefly. Now, I know a lot of you, there's not a ton of you on this webinar, but I know a lot of you said that you are already Promo Republic customers. Are any of you using the Promo Republic agency solution, or do you know the agency solution for Promo Republic? I would love to know because there's a couple of things that I think, based on the topic of hiring and based on the topic that Tanner has been talking about in the chat and a few others have been talking about, of like sometimes difficulty with collaboration with freelancers. There's a few things within the agency solution of Promo Republic, specifically for like social media management side of things. And I'd love to talk about that briefly. I can see nobody has answered that question. So I just want to show you a couple of things. We'll talk about a couple of things first. So if you didn't know already, Promo Republic released a agency platform, agency part of their solution very recently. And I am just going to bring up like a kind of screenshot of Promo Republic versus some of the other competitors. So as I said, didn't know, Promo Republic released an agency solution specifically built with some specific features for agencies and freelancers, people that run social media marketing agencies, digital marketing agencies, and do like social media marketing for their clients, right? And one of the things we've discussed today is like collaboration issues, and there can be collaboration issues with even with clients. And this is one of the things that Promo Republic has been able to solve very, very well with their inbuilt approval workflows, collaboration workflows within the agency solution itself. And that was something that I just wanted to kind of touch on briefly. I don't know if I necessarily need to show that to you all, because I know that, as I said, like a few of you are already using the agency solution. But if any of you have any kind of questions or would like to hear a little bit more about Promo Republic for agencies, I'd be happy to answer those now. I think what we'll actually do is we'll go to questions now. So let's spend some time. As I said, this webinar has been very fast and very short, shorter than usual. So let's spend some time on questions. If anybody has questions about hiring, how to find contractors, like how to vet them, maybe any questions around that, or any questions around the agency solution of Promo Republic, or how Promo Republic can help you in general, now is a good time to go through that, and I'm happy to take those now. So let's go to questions. Who has the first question for me? Just get them, put them together in the chat box. I'm hoping there'll be a few. If not, that's no problem. But okay. So Joel says best practices for working the agency support services. Joel, I am really sorry, my friend. I am not too sure what you mean. Best practices for working the agency support services at Promo. Joel, would you mind expanding on that ever so slightly? As in, do you mean communication with the Promo Republic team has been a little slow? Is that what you mean? Or am I missing the question? Okay. Okay, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's useful feedback. So I'll feed that back to the team. If there are any specific issues that you're having or that you're facing, like feel free to email me and I will put it through to the right person. I can share that email address with you on the screen in a moment, because that's not the experience that we want you to have. So yeah, sorry that sometimes things are a little bit slow. As you said, the team are growing and there's a lot to be working on. But yeah, we don't want that to be happening. So if there are any problems like that, please feel free to let me know. Send me an email, and I'll see if I can get things solved for you. Does anybody else have any questions about hiring, Promo Republic itself? I know some of you were new on this webinar, so I'm keen to find out if I know we've got a lot of people watching who haven't kind of engaged in the chat section, which is totally fine. I appreciate that. But if you want me to go through, show you a kind of run through of the Promo Republic agency solution, we do have plenty of time to do that. But as I said, I didn't want this kind of webinar to be a full demo for you. And any questions about hiring, I am happy to take them. But it seems that you guys are all fairly quiet, which again is totally fine. I think it's because there's fewer of you on the webinar this week than normal. So I'll kind of hang around for a little bit longer, but if there aren't any more questions, then we'll just we'll wrap things up. But for anyone that's interested in the agency solution, so if you want to learn more about it, there are a couple of things you can do. First of all, I just want to tell you about a special offer. So for everyone on this webinar, we're offering a special 25% discount on the agency solution, the agency version of Promo Republic. So you get a load of cool things with this. You get the collaboration and approval workflows that I talked about to improve communication with yourself and your clients and with your freelancers, etc. There's a smart planner included, loads of other great stuff. As I said, I used to work for Hootsuite, who are a huge social media management platform, and for me, Promo Republic's solution for agencies is much better than the offering that they had right now. Saves you a ton of time also. So if you do want to learn more about that, we do have this special offer for 20% off. And to get hold of that, you just have to email me, so dylan@promorepublic.com, and put webinar offer in the subject line of the email, and I will help you out with that. And also, Joel, if you have any specific questions or need some support with something, please send me an email to dylan@promorepublic.com. For everybody else that joined us and engaged with us, it looks like the questions have dried up. So I just want to say thank you to Tanner. I hope you enjoyed this first webinar. Thank you to Kimberly, to everybody else who engaged. We do these webinars every single week at the same time. Time may be changing. I'm not sure. Clocks are changing all around the world right now, but we do these every Thursday. If there's anything specific that you would like to see from these webinars, anything to do with growing your agency or kind of help agency or freelancer business, then please do let me know, because we are here to help you all. But if there are no other questions, I'll give it 1 or more minutes, but if nothing else comes through, then I will wrap things up. So thank you all for joining. As I said, I'll give it another minute or two. If no questions come through, then we'll end the webinar.